The David Bohm Society presents.
Yes, well, we may have many ideas about the whole. The simplest idea is a static whole that is complete, which is not what I am proposing, but rather a whole which is really a movement toward wholeness, rather than a complete whole. Right? And it means also that we will always find that from time to time our thoughts or our actions are not coherent, which means they're not producing the results we intend, producing results we don't want and don't expect, and so on. And therefore, if we will acknowledge this fact rather than cover it up, as so often the case, then we will begin to change our ideas and move toward greater coherence. So I say this whole, bringing coherence requires that the whole be all brought together. If we have a lot of different parts which have no relation, then it's very hard to imagine coherence. Now, I would take it that we would have a society not in which everything would always be coherent, because we would always be discovering incoherence as we extend our experience and our knowledge, but we would always be open to acknowledging this fact and to move toward coherence, to have new ideas that move toward coherence. Now, this is something which is not common in our present society. An attempt is made to do this in science, although highly imperfectly. In other areas, it is rather rare to say that we are going to acknowledge incoherence when we see it, or even welcome the perception of it, so that we will be able to learn to move toward greater coherence. See, it's a different attitude. The wholeness is the movement toward wholeness and not a static whole. And the movement toward coherence and not a final coherence. Now, in general, our thought process at least over the past 5,000 years or so, if not more, has been that when we see incoherence, we tend to blot out awareness of it. We tend to try to make ourselves more comfortable. You see, I think in social psychology they have a term which is very useful called cognitive dissonance. If we have two cognitions that are dissonant, they make us uncomfortable. We may say we have one idea about ourselves, but another fact which shows that idea is not right. We like the idea about ourselves or our country or whatever it is, our religion. And what happens is that the consciousness of this dissonance is blotted out. In this way, we remove dissonance by blotting out awareness of it, rather than by finding the source of it and producing genuine coherence and genuine consonance. But see, this has been a major feature of our thought process. Propaganda is an extreme case of it. The purpose of propaganda is exactly to do this, to blot out evidence of incoherence. And we have to see that this is really very silly. It's pointless and silly and destructive. And if we follow this with the present development of technology, we can't get away with it any longer. It will eventually destroy us. See, at the level of the Stone Age, we are not destructive enough to do very much, so we can think that way to some extent. But now we no longer can get away with it. We have to have this scientific spirit of acknowledging incoherence wherever we see it and being ready to change our ideas to make it more coherent.
Dr. Bohm, could you speak more explicitly about the relationship between the implicate order, the explicate order, and consciousness?
Yes. Yes, well, I've introduced the implicate order first in connection with physics, of having something unfolded, which unfolds into the manifest world as a way of explaining the manifest world, which is different from the mechanistic way of saying it's made of certain parts which are externally related, and they're just put together, the parts make up. The whole is nothing but our way of looking at how a large bunch of parts are put together. Whereas in this way we have a whole which is internally related, which is intrinsically one, because each part contains the whole enfolded. And its activity depends on the way it enfolds the whole. Now, it's not merely passive enfoldment. Now, I say consciousness is similar. See, if you look, we unfold this whole room into our consciousness, or in the whole world outside, or the sky, looking at the sky at night, the whole universe. And according to the meaning of what is enfolded, our whole response follows, not merely outward action, but also the inward state of mind and body and feeling. It all comes from this whole which is enfolded. I mean, some change in what is enfolded will change the entire psyche, the entire body, everything. I gave the example, a trivial example of imagining that a shadow is an assailant and the whole body is mobilized, the whole mind. And seeing that it's a shadow, it all goes. Now, if we enfold the notion that the world has no meaning, then this will affect everything, the whole way body works and the whole way the mind works. It will, in a way, lower everything. It will depress everything. And so I say that there's this great similarity between this enfoldment which goes on in, which one can see in quantum theory, and the enfoldment which one can see in the experience of consciousness. And this similarity might provide the basis for a relationship. Or at least there's enough similarity so that possibly a coherent relationship could be established. Now, if we don't establish that relationship, then we can either say the mind is nothing but part of the machine, which is the way modern science is moving. It's called an epiphenomenon, which has no particular causal efficacy, but just simply as a sort of a way of talking about things. Or you could take the view of dualism, saying mind and matter are entirely different, and then you have to understand how they could be related. Or you could take the view of idealism, which says that it's all mind, and that matter is nothing but a thought, for example, in the mind of God. Now, these are various possibilities. Now, what I'm proposing is to say, I'm not giving a final explanation of mind and matter, but I'm saying that if the implicate order provides a way of thinking which enables one to see how they can be related. I mean, it would still leave open the question of what is their deeper nature.
dbohm.com